Well, the cattle inventory report comes out twice a year, and it contains the inventory numbers for all cattle and calves for the United States. Many in the industry look to this report for an indication if cattle producers are finally starting to hold on to some heifers for breeding. It came out on Wednesday afternoon, and shortly thereafter, we caught up with a cattle market analyst here in Orlando. Joining us here at the 2024 Cattle Industry Convention is Don Close from Terrain. Don, we always enjoy getting your perspective on the cattle industry here, particularly at this convention, so good to see you here. And we've got a cattle inventory report to talk about. What was the headline for this January's report?
I think the headline is it's bullish. Now, you can make the argument, okay, was it reasonably close to estimates on the top line numbers? Yeah. But to me, the real bullish component of the report is the available supply of cattle outside feed yards down 4.3%. That's a huge number. And as that available supply for feeders tightens up, the strength it will put under that calf and yearling market as we go through the year.
We continue to see the herd gets smaller and smaller with each one of these reports that comes out. A lot of our viewers will know why that is, but let's talk about the big picture factors of the industry right now. What's leading us to this small herd?
I think there's a lot of them remember the 2014, 2015 market. They were all persuaded to chase the market for females, and remember that didn't work out well for them. I think the age demographics of producers is playing a bigger role all the time. A lot of guys just to an age that they don't know that they want to do that anymore. I think the interest rate markets that we've been dealing with for the last 2 years certainly adds a component to that purchase or ownership of females that makes it more of a challenge. And then the biggest one is, given the drought constraints that we've had over so many parts of the country, that producer hasn't been in a position to expand even if he wanted to. So primarily drought, but a culmination of factors.
Yeah. It kind of plays into the conversation that's being brought up of when will people start to rebuild the herd? You want to throw some thoughts out there on that topic?
I do. I think that the biggest prohibitor, as we just talked about, has been weather. I talked to producers in the Oklahoma, Texas area just last week, and they said, we've had a number of all this moisture moving across the country. We've had a number of quarter-inch rains really support wheat pasture growth, but we haven't seen that deep soaking rain to recharge pasture conditions. So I think that's the big limitation. I also think there's a factor in just that fear factor that we'll get to that point that they all want to expand and they're all going to get there the same day. So when it starts, it'll go full force.
When we're at this point in the cattle industry, people start to share their thoughts on how we could rebuild differently moving forward.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that conversation? Is that a possibility?
I think it's a huge possibility, and I think it's a great question. Because as we were just talking about the average age of producers, I think when we see this build back and ones on down the road, a new generation of producers will take over. But I think the model that they're working under, there'll be larger producers, there'll be more professional. Instead of farming and have a set of cows or have an off-farm job and a set of cows, I think this new generation of producers will be full-time cow owners, but at a bigger scale than the classic average ownership of 45, 47 cows.
What's the demand picture look like here domestically, but perhaps also internationally for beef?
I think it looks incredibly good. We did see a contraction in U.S. beef exports in 2023. The strength of the dollar, just flat price of our product, that will probably continue to be an issue. We've got the whole global volatility. Which corner of the world you want to look at, we've got that uncertainty and volatility. That's a factor. But the U.S. is so well positioned to be the world source for high quality product, and that's not going to change. On the domestic front, Terrain's been doing a lot of work and looking at real per capita expenditures of all of the species of protein, but we're drilling down even further on the beef side and looking at expenditures by quality grade of beef. And when we took it to a hard dollar number, beef demand is still incredibly strong. The demand for that high-end product, even though it has eased away from the exorbitant spending we were doing with all the free COVID money, it's still very, very strong. And a lot of that support in beef has actually come from, at the expense, particularly broilers, and to a degree, pork. So consumers are still voting with their dollars that they want beef.
What's happening in the beef industry right now that perhaps is not getting enough attention?
Wow. I think that's probably the most difficult question I've been asked. I think the volatility and the exposure that these owners deal with on a day-to-day basis, and just how to manage the volatility when prices get this high, is probably the biggest challenge they have.
Is there a piece of advice you want to leave us with as beef cattle producers look at the year ahead?
I think I would just rehash everything we've talked about, that certainly the contraction of the supply in this report, every bit as much, if not more, contraction than what was expected. No visible retention of females as of yet, and that overall beef demand is still very good.
We'll keep an eye on it. Don, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.